My name is Greg. I'm here with mxdwn Music, and I'm talking with both Sydney and Noah today from Echosmith. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for chatting with us. Um,
Sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, how are you guys, and where are you guys currently in the world?
I am great. And I'm in Los Angeles, California, and Noah's too, but we're both at our own homes. Um, so just about, 15 minutes from each other. But yeah, we're actually home right now, which is nice.
Nice. Yeah. How are you guys like enjoying your time at home, like before like this album release?
It's been good. I think it's been nice to slow down. I think we spent so much time and so much travel, like getting this record done, but also mixing that out with playing shows and doing some touring and stuff. We've just been going for a while. But I feel like as we get ready for this album release, like I feel like things have like our schedules lightened up a little bit, and hopefully that can allow us some space to really like enjoy this moment, enjoy the process of putting out an album because we've spent a lot of time and poured our hearts really into these stories.
Mm.
Um, and so I think like it's important that we give ourselves space to like enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so starting with the new album, which comes out very soon, is very exciting. This feels like a record that's kind of a moment of reintroduction for the band. What is the significance of releasing the album as a self-titled album and having the name Echosmith be the front and center at this point in your career? And what do you hope fans take away when listening to the album?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a very fitting time to do a self-titled album because, like you said, it's sort of our reintroduction to maybe our listeners who are consistently listening to us now, or even people who listen to us randomly or hear us at a grocery store or have come to a show but it's been a couple years or whatever. It's kind of a cool moment for us to literally just introduce everybody to who we are as a band, but also as a family and individuals. So I think it's really cool that we get to have this opportunity to let people in on, during interviews, let them in on the process to get here, but also let them in on what's been going on in our lives the past couple of years, or maybe even since our childhood, and give them a chance to get to know us better, because I think also our fans and listeners have really let us into their lives and had Echosmith songs be the soundtrack during really pivotal moments. And they've shared those stories with us. So I think that the least we could do is do the same in return and let them know the things that we struggle with, or the things that we care about, the things that we're excited about, or the things that scare us. So also, of course, there are some, you know, things that you could write down of why we named it Echosmith, being that it's self-produced and most of the songs are written just by Echosmith. And we're more involved in every single detail than we ever have been. And that's been really rewarding, even though the album hasn't even come out yet today, but we still get to feel that sort of reward in knowing that we really put our best efforts in and really have opened the door to get to know us, and people can kind of just take it from there and get to take ownership over the songs once they're out. So it's a really special time, and I think it's very fitting to do this now. And we kind of figured a self-titled album is sort of now or never, as we are reintroducing everyone, after such a crazy time in all of our lives.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I mean, sonically, the new album sounds definitely more creatively freeing with like heavier grooves and, gorgeous vocal melodies and stuff. A lot of crunchy guitars. What were some of like the influences that helped shape the musical landscape of this record?
Yeah, I mean we've listened to a lot of records. I mean, I think for me, like always going to our roots of like the Talking Heads and the Smiths. I mean, I think like the way that the Talking Heads like really worked with rhythm, especially with the bass and drums, and the way the vocals sat on top of that has always been super influential. But then like there's records I've listened to even just like opening my phone for it. But like heavy guitar wise, there's an album I heard from a band called Young Fathers.
Mm.
Called Heavy Heavy, and it's like a totally different thing. It's a very different like world of music. It's like this cool kind of like shouty alternative thing, but the fuzzy guitars and that stuff I thought were just so sick. But also even like the fuzzy guitars and the way the preamps worked with like the early Beatles or kind of more like mid Beatles stuff as well. So I think like a bit of music history, some contemporary albums as well. Like Absolutely by Dijon is an album I've listened to a lot. Like I think there's quite a few different bits of music that we've taken things from, but I also think in a lot of ways like we didn't listen to a lot of like music while we were making these songs specifically. We really like we wrote the songs and then we made music. And I think, you know, of course, like we're listening to music all the time and that's influencing us and what we're putting out. But I think also like we tried to have our songs dictate the direction of the music as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Were there any moments like when you found like a new appreciation for creating music with all like, you know, the life events that have happened over the past years, and like what have you learned about yourself as artists and just as people in general through making this album?
Yeah, I think we've kind of gone on this really crazy journey of finding ourselves again, because I think when we started writing this album, the first song we wrote was Brother Sister. And if you listen to that song, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very raw song, and it's basically a conversation between Noah and I talking about our worst fears and what if we don't get to do this anymore. And it was in the middle of COVID, but even aside from a pandemic, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And especially with being in the music world, you're not guaranteed literally anything. And, you know, you do have to have that appreciation deep down for the fact that you're even in a position to have time and resources to make music, because it takes a lot to make an album, you know, and we're very hands-on with this one. So we're feeling it more than ever, how much it takes, especially of your time to create something like this and put it out and try to get it heard, you know? So, you know, the first song we wrote is Brother Sister, and the last song we wrote was Sour. So it's interesting because like from the time that we wrote that first song to when we wrote the last one, I think we truly were on this journey in a personal sense too of, okay, we feel really lost right here and we don't know what the next step is, but let's keep talking about it and diving into our why and, you know, finding inspiration again, because we did feel like we kind of lost a lot of that and lost our identity. But then as we made the album, I feel like we truly found ourselves again. And I think you can kind of hear that in the music too, or especially the lyrics, because it's not like Sour is a perfect happy ending song of everything in my life is perfect now and I have the right amount of appreciation for what I do. It's actually still about, you know, some of the things that I worry about, but I'm just in such a different place now. And I think we all are. So I think we've changed a lot, but I think we've found our footing and found not just, oh, who Echosmith always was, but who is Echosmith now? And how have we changed? And why are we even doing this? Is it just to feel cool that we do music? Yeah, of course, there's part of it of like, it feels awesome to do music and it's a really, really fun job. But it's also one of those things that you have to really believe in, because if you don't believe in it, then really what's the point and who else really will? So yeah, I think it's been a really cool process that I think you can hear in the lyrics, and you feel that reflection even now with just who we are now. I think yeah, we sort of are different people than who we were when we first started this, and I'm glad to report that. Not that I'm like perfect and everything is great now, but I think I feel a lot more at peace with, you know, what we're doing, and more appreciation, like you said, because we knew what it felt like to not be able to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like I definitely like listening back to like older stuff too. Like I definitely see like the progression of the band and everything, because I feel like you guys, or at least like from what I saw, there's a lot of like songwriting from like a collective perspective, like with Lonely Generation or like Everyone Cries. And then I feel like with this new album, it's definitely a lot more personal. So I feel like, you know, it's very interesting to see that progression. So like what helped you become like more comfortable with writing from a more personal and vulnerable place?
Gotta say, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
And that's something Cindy and I have talked a lot about. Even today, we're like creating a set list and talking about our old music and kind of like the dynamics we have internally of like the songwriting process of how we did things back then versus how we do things now, and like how we connect so much more to these new songs. And I think in a lot of ways, like that, as Cindy was talking about, we talked a lot about the why of what we're doing, and that is like to tell stories that mean something to us in the hopes that it can mean something to other people. And that if we're able to be honest with ourselves, hopefully that can encourage you, the listener, to like be honest with yourself too, and be able to like open that up to other people. Because in a way, like when we're putting this music out, we're creating a community of people that see us and see our struggles and see what we're feeling, what we're talking about. And my hope is that we can continue to grow in that in our songwriting. And I really feel like this album captures so much of like this very specific season of our lives. It's not conceptual, it's not some like meta artistic thing. It's really just journal entries. It's just our story laid out, our feelings, our experiences. And it could be joyful, it can be sad, it can be everything in between. And that I think we just encouraged ourselves. And I think we've seen just how much more beautiful something can be when it's more introspective, when it's more honest.
Yeah, and I think also it's a lot easier to take the big picture approach, kind of like what you're talking about, of this communal thing of we're the lonely generation. That's a lot easier to admit to even a friend, or yes, in your lyrics in music, than to say, I feel really lonely and I really struggle with feeling content, or I struggle with feeling anxious, or fill in the blank, whatever it is for you. And I think for a long time with our music, we were always trying to be really personal, but also like sometimes we didn't even know how to be, because I also have a hard time even knowing how I feel, and I have to sort through my feelings, and that's just how my mind works, you know. And I think the more I've gotten to know myself, and I think probably Noah would agree, the more I've gotten to know myself, obviously the more there is to talk about. And I think we've really taken that a big step further than any of our music before. And even I think a really good example of that is Cool Kids, and how we did a new version, Cool Kids, our version, last year, because it came back on TikTok, and it kind of just made us rethink that song and wonder, how do I feel about this song right now? And I mean, we've always appreciated it and loved it, but when we first wrote it, we took this outside narrative approach to it, saying, oh, there's this girl who feels like she's not good enough and she's left out, or there's this guy in the second verse who doesn't feel good enough, and he said, I wish I could be like the Cool Kids. But with the new version, that's the first time I brought myself into the story and used, pronouns like I feel this way. And so it's really interesting to really see how we've grown. And I think those two examples are great examples of where Echosmith is now and how personal everything is, where if we were going to write a new bridge to Cool Kids, there's no way it wouldn't be like admitting the things that I'm still struggling with, and so it's been really cool to really do that. And we're kind of just trying it out as we go and forcing ourselves to be like, okay, let's write a song about it. And we can always decide later if we don't want to put it out. But a lot of those songs that were scary to write are on this third album.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I mean, talking about like things that are scary to write about, do you ever find it like difficult knowing that, like, since this is a family band, like if there's like things that are off topics to write about, and like what would you say is the most difficult part about creating music with your family?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like nothing is really off limits, I feel like, when it comes to writing now. And I think before we got to this place of really diving in deep and talking about all of it, we did feel nervous to maybe even just write songs about our own family dynamic, that yes, not everything is perfect all the time. And now we've gotten better at communication, and we do love doing this together, and we're in a better place than we've ever been. But it doesn't mean that there weren't growing pains along the way. And I never even thought to put that into a song before. But I think as we stepped into this new season of making the third album and being really transparent with our lyrics, somebody on our team was like, why don't you write a song about that? You should write about all of it. You should write about the street you grew up on. You should write about every piece of it. And it was really awesome to hear that from our manager, because it was really encouraging to be like, okay, I guess we should. And someone, I don't know, thinks that they'd like to hear that, so I guess we'll try it. And that is how a lot of these songs started. And Sucks to Be Us kind of captures a lot of that. And yeah, so I think that nothing is you're off limits now. But we're also, I don't know, as time goes on, there might be things where it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't know what it's like to be a mom yet or anything, but I assume I'm going to want to talk about it, but I don't know how I'll feel one day. But as of now, everything is kind of just written about, and we get to decide ultimately later if we want people to hear that or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely feels like a very therapeutic like session, like just being able to like write music from like your emotions in the moment. So I
Yeah.
definitely love that. Yeah. I mean, I know you touched on it a little bit, but the Cool Kids song, definitely had a resurgence on TikTok. Did this virality create any like momentum for the new album or spark any like natural creativity, singing your song using this like new context? And what would you say is like the biggest misconception about having a song go viral on TikTok?
I think I can answer like the first part of that question. I think for us, like we were in the middle of working on our album when all that stuff was happening. So we kind of took a break from that to then work on Cool Kids Art version. And I think for us, like we talked a lot about this, that gave us a lot of time to reflect on like the song itself and also what the song did and how that song connected to people. Because obviously, like that of all our songs was like what did it. That's had obviously the widest reach. I mean, not everyone knows the name Echosmith, but most people know that song, which is kind of crazy. But like with that, like we got to talk a lot about like why did that connect? Why did that do what it did? And why is that something that like beauty is this like good thing to reach? Like, okay, why is that something beautiful? Why is that something that people have like connected to emotionally? And because of that, those conversations, like we got to bring that to our new music and ask ourselves, like, does the song capture not necessarily like the same spark? Is it going to be the same hit? Like, no one can measure, no one can know whether or not that'll happen. But like, does our new music capture more, hopefully, or at least the same amount of like connection? Does it provide the same opportunity for people to hear and experience themselves and remember like, oh, I felt that way too? So I think for us, like that's probably what it did more than anything.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that, like, to the other part of your question of like misconceptions about something going viral, they also think that, and I've been part of this too, they meaning all of us. I think we can all get caught up in the idea of going viral because so much of our worlds revolve around it. I mean, no matter what job you have, if you end up going viral for your day in the life or your get ready with me or your song, whatever, it makes you think, oh my gosh, everything is changing. And sometimes it does. And for us, it did create a lot of momentum. And it was perfect timing for us because we already had new music made and we already knew what we were doing instead of just, oh my gosh, I guess we should like write a new song now to capitalize on it. It actually was a very natural, organic progression of what we were going to do anyways. But I think a lot of us put so much value into the idea of going viral or having success online, but it's so harmful to find your value in numbers online because it can go away at any time or it could never happen again, or it could, but like if that's where you find your value, your level of joy and contentment every day is going to change so much minute to minute. And I've fallen into that trap so many times. And I have to remind myself constantly, this is not where I find my value. This is part of what I do. And it's important that we put our best efforts and our best foot forward online. And I run pretty much all the socials for the band, which is, and we, create stuff together, but like I'm executing all that stuff and, trying to come up with ideas and thinking the best way I can do it. But also I can't just put my identity in that either, because I've learned from experience that it feels terrible when you do that. And you just need to do your best, put things out there to hopefully get your music to reach people. And then just let the results be what they are and not be result driven. Because otherwise that's a very dangerous trap. And I think a lot of us feel that literally no matter what you're doing, because it's seen as really cool if you go viral. And it is cool, but it's also not really a good testament to who you are as a person always. I mean, we can all be appreciated in different ways. And I think it's way cooler to have your dad say he's proud of you than, oh my gosh, you went viral and you look so pretty or something. You know, we have to like be able to realize what the difference is and have fun with it, but not make it our everything. And that's coming from somebody who's fallen into that trap so many times. Of course, I think we all have, if you even have social media. But I think that's a big lesson I've learned, and a big thing that people ask me how it feels all the time. And, I try to make sure it's not the thing that's making me feel great.
Yeah, and I think the way you guys went about it, creating Cool Kids art version, I feel like that was a very good way, like a very mature, like recontextualizing the song, and like your point in your lives now, because it kind of reminds me of like what Taylor Swift is doing with her discography too, like how she's updating her music too. Like, do you feel like there's any other songs like in your past discography that you would like, reimagine or update, to like kind of channel where you are in your life right now?
I haven't really thought about it too much with anything else. I mean, if it comes up and we feel naturally inspired to do that, then I think it'd be awesome to do. Yeah, so I don't know. You never know what the future holds. I think now we feel just the most excited about new music that we're creating. I mean, we're only on our third album too. It's not like we have like 10 albums, even though we've been a band for like 17 years or something. We don't feel too much like, oh my gosh, I really want to redo this or add something to our song Bright. And that was another one that a lot of people heard. Because right now I'm happy with where it is. And maybe one day I'll change my mind and decide, oh my gosh, it'd be so fun to do one that has like a country feeling with a different kind of person or something. I don't know. So you never know what the future holds. But as of now, the Cool Kids Art version was such a fun thing to do, and it felt very fitting and natural for the time. And right now I feel like we're in the place where it feels most natural to just keep making new music and letting that live out in the world, and then going from there to, I don't know, I guess decide what we do in the future. And if we want to do some re-recordings, I'm totally down for that. It's super fun. But yeah, I think we're in the place of focusing on new music right now.
I love that. Yeah, I know you guys, have to get out in a little bit, but I have a couple more for you. So I mean, with this new era of Echosmith coming to the limelight, what are you most excited for, bringing this like, self-titled era to audiences and live shows and stuff? Like, what kind of story do you hope to tell with the live show?
Well, we're sort of dreaming up the new live show now, because we do have a European tour coming up in the fall. And of course, there will be more things in the US and everywhere, because an album is coming out, and that's what you do. So we're kind of dreaming up the live setting now, and we're very much in the, first baby steps of that. But ultimately, we want our show to be more of an experience than a show. And kind of, I mean, in a different way, similar to what I was saying about social media, I mean, like, it's so easy to get caught up in the show aspect of it. Because again, going to a show is so cool as a fan, as a listener, and it's so fun to perform. I cannot deny that. I feel some of my, highest highs on stage. It's so amazing to experience that. But I also don't want it to feel like this thing where, oh my gosh, you're just such a far away thing that I'm looking at, but I'm not a part of it. I want our fans to feel like they're a part of it and feel like they can reach us and touch us, physically or whatever, like where I could like grab their hand and have that moment face to face. So our main goal is connection with everything that we do. And we want the live show to have connection as the through line more than, wow, they're so cool, they're so untouchable or something. I don't want that to be the takeaway. I want it to be, oh my gosh, I feel a little bit changed after going to their show because I got to connect with the artist, or I got to connect with the person next to me because Sydney said to put your arm around the person next to you. And you know what I mean? So it's like we're trying to create these moments that are beyond the music, but using music as the vehicle to do it, that just create more connection. So I think our last tour in the fall this past year was a great taste of what's to come, because there were so many special moments. It felt like an experience more than anything has for us in the live setting. I mean, we got custom fortune cookies made and did a surprise song every night and had the fan. So we picked someone random to dig into a bowl, open a fortune cookie, and tell us what we were playing. And that was such a cool moment. No matter who, I mean, sometimes I would choose a fan I recognize, and sometimes I would choose someone that I've never seen and I knew was their first show. And you can't replace that kind of memory. So I think there's just going to be a lot more of that stuff where it's super fun, but also really meaningful. And I'm excited to build this new show around these songs because they mean so much. And I think it'll be cool to give them life in the live setting too.
I love that. It's very beautiful. Like definitely just it seems like you're trying to, I don't know, add like the audience to the show. Like they're not more like this passerbyers. They're kind of like involved in the show too. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more fun that way for us too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have one more question for before you guys get out of here. But yeah, with this new era of Echosmith finally, coming to fruition, what parting advice would you give to other artists who might find it difficult to reinvent themselves, creatively, especially like in this age of social media where it feels like everything an artist does is heavily critiqued or scrutinized?
Some advice that I would say, and maybe Noah, you can give something from your perspective. Something I would say is to really spend time alone in the quiet as you're creating and before you're creating and after, because I think it's so easy to be influenced by people around us, even if it's just from comments on your post or something like that. And I think it's really great to have a core group of people that can speak into your life and encourage you and help believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. That is absolutely necessary. But I think it's also really necessary to spend time by yourself in the, unseen places to really figure out why you're doing this. Because then that helps you feel inspired to try something new because you spent that time thinking about why you're doing it instead of just, oh, I need to just create something hooky and catchy. Because we don't know, like Noah said earlier, we don't know what's going to work and we don't know what someone's going to connect with because there have been so many #1 songs or successful things that are non-traditional that you would not think that's so catchy right off the bat, So I think really like having a great core group of people that believe in you when you don't, because we all have those moments as artists, but also giving yourself the space to, figure out why you're doing it and to kind of reflect on your life. Like, how am I feeling right now? Like, let me take an assessment of every facet of my life and I love journaling and I think it's so great to journal about what's going on in your life. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I need to write a song about that because now I actually know what's going on in my mind. So I think having time in the quiet places is really helpful for inspiration. And then naturally, yeah, you're going to try more fun things with like a guitar part or a keyboard sound or whatever. But I think that's really helpful for the songwriting part of it.
Yeah, and I think I would add, I think it's always being honest with the art and to yourself in the process. And yeah, and having people around you to support you in that pursuit. I think like, life is complicated and hard and sometimes joyful and sometimes really painful for a lot of different people. And I think art is the thing that we all get to go to feel some kind of connection to other people. And I think music really has like the greatest capacity for helping people feel less alone. So I think for us, it's something I want us to keep growing in. And I'd encourage other artists to consider that too. Like we're not doctors, but I do think we're giving a certain kind of medicine to people. And I think that is really beautiful. And again, like we can provide every answer, but we can be in it with you. And through art, we get to tell that experience and that story. And I've seen how that helps me. I know Sydney can speak to that too, but I think every artist should really take that call very seriously. I mean, if the answer to that is like write fun party music, then write it with that in mind. Not everything needs to be so like serious or dark or whatever, but like I think there should be a purpose to what we're doing, and it should be to like bless people or to let the fruit of it be love. Let people really experience like something good and true and like lovely and beautiful out of what we're putting out. That's what I hope to do, and I hope other artists can join in on that vision.
I love that. It's very beautiful, very beautifully said, and there's definitely a lot of art and beauty, and I think You guys are definitely creating something beautiful with, the scene music and stuff. So I very much appreciate you guys talking with us today. And yeah, I mean, it was an honor, and I hope you guys, have an amazing rest of your day and everything. And yeah, just thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
did. Yeah, this was so awesome. So yeah, we'd love to do it again. Thanks so much.
For sure, for sure. All right, well, take it easy. Hope you guys have a good
You
one.
too. Bye.
Thanks.